On this episode of the Reynolds Team podcast, I'm sitting down with Realtor Kathleen Pogany to discuss how to stage your home to go on the market.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm super excited.
So thank you very much for coming on the Reynolds Team podcast, Kathleen.
Thank you. I am excited to be here. I love sharing ideas, and this is a great idea, so thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. So if you can, just start off by introducing who you are and how long you have been a realtor.
Well, I'm Kathleen Pogany. I have been a realtor on the Reynolds team and a realtor for 7 years. Prior to that, I was a teacher for 24 years, which actually has a lot in common. I taught kindergarten through 5th grade, and there's a lot in common with being a teacher and actually doing real estate. So teachers are, usually very organized. We're hand holders. We get the kids through stressful situations. And so I found it was a really easy, fun transition just working with people older than 9. So.
Absolutely. And I think that a lot of those same skills definitely come in handy in terms of how complex the process of putting your home on the market can be and guiding people through that.
Absolutely. It's not, a realtor's job has many facets. It's not as easy, as people think. We're not just there to throw your home on the market. There's a lot of homework that goes on beforehand, before you see it on the listing service. There's a lot of work we do in the background before, during, and after, of course. So.
And I think one of the parts of the task of putting a home on the market is staging the home in a way to where it's going to be attractive to the most amount of buyers that come through the home. And so when you go about trying to stage a home when you're listing it on the market, what are just some of the beginning points or things that you hone in on with your sellers?
Well, first of all, most people are really open to staging. I get a question a lot of times from other realtors: how do you bring up staging without hurting anyone's, feelings? And I think most sellers, it's all about the top dollar that they can get for their home. So most sellers are totally fine hearing advice and ideas and suggestions. So that's, something really important to mention. Being with hundreds of buyers over the past 7 years, I start to hear the same things from buyers. And the number one thing I hear from buyers is most of the time it's about how they feel when they walk in your home. Can they see themselves in the home? And the home may fit everything on their list, but they don't have that feeling when they walk in the home. So that's where, I started really getting more into staging. And as a teacher, we had homework, and I give sellers homework as well. And most sellers are really willing to do what it takes to get top dollar for their home. So I could talk about some of the things that, we focus on. If that, we do a walkthrough outside the home and inside the home, and I just from experience, talk about some of the things that buyers may point out. I think it's super important, your curb appeal. What does the house feel like when you're walking up the drive? A bag of mulch is really inexpensive, and it hides a lot of weeds. It makes, if you walk in and you see the front door is neatly and clean, it's painted, there's a fresh pot of flowers, a welcome mat, $20, $15, depending on where you shop, really makes the home inviting and lets a buyer know, the home must be taken care of on the inside. Look at how fresh it is on the outside. So that could be trimming trees, touching up, a lot of power washing we've had done. We have resources for that for our sellers. So, power washing to get in Florida, we get sometimes algae and things like that. So really sprucing up the entranceway to the house. The front door, that's a $5 can of paint. And so that's something we talk about. Like I mentioned, the welcome mat, flowers these are all inexpensive things you can do that maybe you're not used to looking at. You're so used to your own home, you kind of don't notice those things. So, curb appeal is really important. So if you watch HGTV, there's even a show that talks about that. So
absolutely. The first impression of when you walk up to a home and go right inside of it is very, very important, and kind of that awe factor that really at the end of the day draws the buyer who's going to be putting out an offer on the home.
Right, especially, you don't want to walk up to a walkway of a home and have a tree branch hit you in the face, or have to duck. We have beautiful palm trees, but we don't want those in our face as we're walking to the front door. And that's just an easy trim here and there. And we can help you with all of that too.
So when you really go about the process of going to talk to potential clients and sellers about listing their home, and you're doing that initial walkthrough, what are some things that you've noticed over the years that have typically stood out to you as far as things to mention for when the staging process comes up?
Yeah, I brought some so I could remember to mention them. So one of the items that we really talk about is, and you've probably heard this many times before, clearing out your personal pictures, any religious, if you have a lot of religious artifacts, political things that may offend buyers that maybe don't have your same point of view. Buyers want to feel like it could be their house, and if they see your whole family up there, and I tell my clients, most of the time they're looking at your family trying to figure out who's who, they're not looking at the house. And, then it feels like it's not their house, like they're intruding on someone else's house. So really, easy, remove those personal pictures. Some people are worried about, nail holes. You can put something else up there or just leave the nail in there. And most of the time, buyers don't notice that. If you go in a model home, you really don't see pictures or, religious artifacts in that. So I always try to bring buyers or sellers to, what is it like when you walk in a model home? So that's really important and easy to do. So, and that's usually free. So it's one of those pieces of homework that's inexpensive. Another thing we talk about is walkways, clearing walkways. Many of us have our house how we like to live in it. But we really want buyers to be able to walk through a hallway without bumping into a table. Make your home seem spacious, and when you have a lot of excess furniture because it fits your needs, or maybe you're working out of your kitchen and that's also your office and it's not meant to be an office space, maybe we kind of clean that up a bit for showings, and we kind of put that home office somewhere else that makes sense, or just tuck it away so that people aren't reading your calendars. Just a story, I had a person had on the refrigerator what to do with the ants, and this is broken. And so, cleaning up your refrigerator, magnets, all of that, pictures. You don't want a bunch of ant traps all over the house so they're visible. And here we have the little small ants, and sometimes we have to use those little bait traps. You don't want those all over the house to make it look like there's a huge issue with insects and such. So clearing the space, making it feel more spacious, that's something that's free. Most of the time we can tuck things away in the garage, or some people have a storage unit, so that's also nice as well.
Absolutely. I think one of the big points that you touched on that I find interesting about the whole process is how essential it is to clear out any major distractions that could easily take away the buyer's attention from what's really important. Whereas instead of looking at family photos and thinking, oh, who is the owner in that photo? Or, oh, I wonder how old they are. Instead, they're walking into a room and thinking, could I put my office here? Could I put my kid's bedroom here? And really kind of getting into the actual nitty gritty of why they're there in the home in the first place is very important.
Right. I've had buyers and clients, and even myself, we go in a house that has artwork everywhere or a map of where they've traveled, and you get distracted. You're not looking at the house, and some buyers have even commented to fill all these holes is going to be just a nightmare. We need to repaint. So just really being modest with your decor like you would in a model home. So good point.
Speaking of decor, when looking at kind of how you stage, different pieces and furniture to really kind of draw the eye to specific parts of a home, what do you usually advise homeowners get or place inside of their home to make it more appealing?
Well, one thing I brought with me to remember is plants. Fresh plants, not the fake plastic ones. This was $4 maybe. Maybe a live plant here or there. Everyone likes greenery and flowers inside. So just having, maybe all your knickknacks tucked away. You have to move anyhow is what I tell my clients. So let's start packing up some of that stuff. Get ready to move because we're going to sell. And maybe instead of a collection of gnomes on your coffee table, just have a fresh plant and a book. So really minimizing distractions like we talked about. Color, pops of color. If your home is all, and it's not, not to offend anyone, but sometimes the color palette is kind of all neutral, some really bright pops of color. We had a home that we staged and it was very neutral. We put some pops of orange and it just really, when you walked in you felt energized and it was nice pops of color around the house, and those are easy to do with pillows or a throw. And speaking of pillows, if you have your beds, if you can, make sure that they're made and it looks like that you've taken care to get the home ready as well. So just little touches like that. A little bit goes a long way.
Absolutely. And when you say that color and plants go a long way, I think of flowers too as a centerpiece in a lot of different rooms.
Yeah.
Can also go a long way.
Yeah. Some people are collectors, which I appreciate. But like I said, you're going to have to pack those things up anyhow. It's okay to put a box of those items if you don't want to get a storage unit and pack them in a closet, So, and just leaving the minimal amount of pieces. And I always go back to compare when you walk in a model home. They have some key little pieces to draw your eye around the room. Color scheme seems to be pretty consistent through the house. Like if we have a pop of turquoise here, we may have a turquoise plate on the counter in the kitchen. And that's important too because, kitchen counters can get very cluttered.
Absolutely.
And so, one of the homes I spent a few hours with my sellers really emptying out some of their pantries, and, they had bread and items all over the kitchen because they didn't have room for it. Well, we don't want buyers to feel like there's not enough storage. So really kind of tapering down. Maybe you don't need to go to Sam's Club and get everything for the month while your home is on the market so that you're out of space and storage. Thin through your closets. Is your closet, I've had some where they had hanging clothes in another room and it showed the buyers, wow, there's not enough storage. So really thinking about those things. Thinning through your closet, I had to go through mine and maybe tuck away all my winter clothes in a box under the bed, and that was out of sight, and my closets looked more spacious. And these are all things that are free that you can do. So
I think the big idea that you're presenting as far as all the different minute details is when walking into a home, the buyer almost wants to feel like they could move into it tomorrow.
Yes, with their toothbrush. I hear that a lot. And it's not necessarily, staging isn't necessarily saying, oh, you need new lights, you need a new fan, you need this. However, if you have something that looks like it's in disrepair, it's nice to get that fixed. We do have vendors we let our sellers know who can help, handyman. Some of our sellers are older and can't do it on their own and are willing to, do a $25 fix or, and get a lamp here or lighting. Oh, that reminds me.
Another essential.
Light bulbs are a big deal. I mean, if you change the light bulb, I can't tell you how many buyers I hear say it's dark in here. And light, bright, and airy sells. People love to walk in. I always pull up all the shades and have my clients, if they're home before a showing, before they leave, open up the blinds, open up your curtains. This is all free. Let the natural light in. I have not had a buyer say they wish it were more dark in a home. So I do have buyers often, I would say more than 50%, maybe even 70% of the time, say it's dark in here. So, replacing light bulbs that are dim with brighter light bulbs, having, your lights on, your curtains open, huge thing. So, and that's easy and it's cheap, but it's things, you have so many, you're moving, maybe you're not thinking of these things, maybe you haven't been out in a home with a buyer before, so these are things maybe you don't think about. There's another thing I want to mention, this thing, a paintbrush. If you have like a door that looks like it's been knocked around, or maybe you're molding, a little can of white paint goes a long way, and it's really inexpensive. We have handyman, like I said, that will come and paint something. It's a cheap way to freshen up your home and make it feel like it's well maintained. So you don't want a buyer to open a door that's hanging off and it's broken, and then they start thinking, oh, what other surprises do they have? So another tip there.
Yeah, I think scuffs on a wall are definitely a big one that you never really know how they get there. They just kind of accumulate over time.
Yeah.
And especially if you have stuff sitting in corners, stuff that can brush up alongside the wall, and especially bed frames too, that can rock back and forth. And if you're moving around furniture when staging a home, definitely making sure all of the walls are spotless and clean and well portrayed is definitely huge.
Yeah, I mean, we're used to living in our home, so it is nice to have a fresh set of eyes come through and point out things that maybe we don't notice because we see our home every day. And just, those little things can make a buyer feel like the home is well taken care of. And I have a lot of buyers that say, wow, this house is like a model. Do they live here? And hopefully, we'll get your home sold quickly, so you won't have to, go through the pain of having so many showings, because it shows really well right out the gate. We want to put our best foot forward right away.
And one other thing that I wanted to discuss is when you're walking through a home looking at how the walls are painted, where all the different little features are going, and how it can be made more colorful. Is there ever any instances where you would suggest furniture maybe being moved around to be less distracting or portrayed in a better light?
Yeah, we do, absolutely. Most sellers, if we can get them more money, maybe we have someone who's using their dining room as an office, and it makes more sense to be a dining room, and it would make, because we don't have an eating area where people can sit at a table. Most sellers are okay kind of shifting the function back to the normal function of the room rather than what worked for them while they've been living in the home. So that's something that we definitely talk about, is furniture placement. Maybe you don't need 10 chairs at your dining room table. Maybe 6 would suffice. It makes the room seem bigger. So those are all things we talk about. Absolutely, super important.
It's definitely very refreshing, especially when I've been out showing homes. There's a very big difference in the buyers that walk into a home and they just kind of casually look around. They don't seem very visibly impressed. But then there are certain rooms or houses that you immediately walk into, and right behind me as I'm opening the door, I just hear them go, wow. Yeah. This looks amazing.
And you know what? These are all things that are, like I said, inexpensive. And if it can get you more money at the closing table, most people are willing to do that and listen and understand it's not an attack on their decor. It's not an attack on their lifestyle. It's really to help them be more neutralized for buyers, so that the buyers can feel like that's the home for them. And one last thing I want to mention is cleaning. That is, if you clean yourself, it's important to make sure your toilets are clean and tubs are clean. Caulking is, if you have black caulking around your tub, picture that, that's a $5 tube of caulk. You take the black out, you do fresh, clean white. It's just a whole, people in their head are thinking they have to replace the tub because they see black caulking, or, the home must be filthy just because. So just those little details that are inexpensive. A good clean. We do have people to refer that are cleaning crews that will do a nice deep cleaning on your home, make it smell fresh and clean, not overbearing deodorizers or candles, but maybe a dryer sheet that you put with your air conditioner filter that helps the home just smell fresh. Keeping the fans on low to move the air, because you have to think of your five senses. Your smell is one of them. So, and I know back in the day, some of my clients would make chocolate chip cookies before people walked in and have those on the counter, and put a little note, take some. I mean, it's a nice, thoughtful touch. And that smell for some reason of chocolate chip cookies or baked apple pie is always nice.
I've never seen that one before, but that makes a lot of sense.
It implies, a sense of taste, smell. And so these are all really easy tips that maybe we kind of overlook or don't think about in the chaos of trying to move and find another house or whatever we're going through. So.
Well, all that is very helpful and very useful advice. So I want to thank you very much for being on the show today, Kathleen.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure, Trevor.
It is indeed. And stay tuned for more episodes of the Reynolds Team Podcast.